You're tracking every touch point, running reports, and optimizing campaigns. But guess what? You're thinking of attribution wrong, and it's holding back your growth. I'm going to show you a faster way to understand the customer journey and where you should be putting your marketing resources in this video. So let's jump in. Hey everyone, Dan Saavedra here from MergeYourData. And today we're going to be talking about why you're thinking of attribution wrong. It's day 39 of 90 of the YouTube sprint on signal analytics. And so if you clicked on this video, it's probably because you use attribution or you're interested in using it and you're wondering, what could I possibly be thinking of incorrectly here? I understand what attribution is and I want to use it. And so we're going to show you how to do attribution type activities faster with a better method and a better way of thinking about it. So let's get into it here. Why would you care about this topic? And so there's three main reasons why you might be interested in thinking of attribution a different way. One is that attribution isn't leading to real results. So you're doing it already, but for some reason, it's not actually leading to increases in revenue and increases in marketing efficiency. Two, you poured big money into attribution projects and ROI is not good. So you spent a lot of time, you probably hired an external company, you might have hired additional headcount, you might have taken people away from critical projects in the organization in order to set up attribution with all these fancy tools. You might even have went and bought additional tools. And when you add up all those costs and then you see how much revenue you drove from those activities, you actually didn't make any money or you made very, very little. And so now you don't have a 100% accurate picture of the customer journey. You don't have the leverage that you thought you would have with the attribution data points. And so you're just disappointed overall. And then three, you need something that works. You need something that you can look at, make decisions off of, and actually get results from. You need to be able to predictably look at certain data points and understand the likelihood of whether or not that's going to lead to actual money in the company's pocket, whether your marketing is going to drive results. And so these are the three main reasons why you would care about thinking of attribution in another way. We're going to show, like I said, a better way to think about attribution as a whole and then what we can use instead. So this might be you right now. You might be sitting there, change my mind. How could you say something like that? I know exactly what attribution is. I know what it's going to do for me. I'm thinking of it the correct way. And so before we talk about the other way of thinking about it, we probably agree on some things about attribution, right? One, it's hard to get right. We know how difficult it can be. There's tons of tools. There's tons of people and talents that are needed in order to implement those tools. You need to be able to interpret the data correctly. Then you need to make the strategic decisions with that data to drive more results. Two, it's not 100% accurate. We've all been in those conversations, whether you're leadership and you question the accuracy of attribution, which you should, or you are a team member who built out the attribution for your company and you're trying to convince leadership that it's good enough. We just know that it's not 100% accurate. There are parts of attribution that drive a lot of results that we're not able to measure accurately, right? A lot of people call these dark attribution channels, like we talked about in the previous video. People have coined various terms around it. They're just difficult to measure touch points that significantly influence conversions and the customer journey. Three, we can drive some success from it. So even though we know it's hard to get right and we know it's not 100% accurate, you can still drive some success from these numbers. Sometimes it's because you statistically have a large enough sample size. Other times it's because a broken clock is right twice a day and you just got lucky. Either way, you can still drive some success from attribution, how you currently think about it. So that leads us to how you should actually think about attribution based off of everything we've seen from our clients' data. And that's one, that it's a passive approach. You are measuring something that is happening. You're just letting someone take an action, and then you're measuring that data point and seeing what happens. It's not active. The only thing that's active about it is actions that you take based off of the data you collect. So that's number one. Number two, it's an imperfect but critical part of signals. So signals is the concept that you're going to use instead of attribution and in combination with attribution. We'll get to that in the next slide. But you're going to understand that it's an imperfect but important part of signals. So even though we talked about those things, it's not 100% accurate. It's hard to get right. It's still a critical part of signals as a whole. And you can tweak how much you weight attribution to adjust your data points and understanding in an accurate way so that you actually can see which signals lead to which results. 3, it is incredibly valuable when weighted and cross-referenced with other data. And so this ties into 1, 2, and 3. And it means that we are going to not look at attribution in a bubble by itself. We're going to combine it with other data points, right? You can use cohort analysis for this type of thing, right? That's a common, similar type of analysis where you are grouping people into specific buckets, cross-referencing it with different data points because that's how you're putting them into specific buckets. And then you are looking at it in a bigger picture. And this is what signals is all about. It's all about taking various data points that you would look at in isolation, but connecting them together and then seeing what the results are based off of that. And we talked about in a previous video, I can't remember what number it was, but we talked about how data in general is just like kinematics, and you need to have multiple reference points to understand how fast something is moving, the direction it's going. And so that's why we want to cross-reference data points. And so when we think about attribution, it needs to be in context. And this is the signals chart that we go over every single video almost since it's been created. And that's attribution, unit economics, dimensional data, and conversion optimization all go into signals. And so attribution is a part of that, as you can see, but you also have this whole part of the chart down here that doesn't have attribution in it, and you can still get a signal from it, right? This would be like signals junior, the intersection of these three without attribution, signals junior, but it is still a signal nonetheless. And so even if your attribution is inaccurate, even if it's weak in terms of its correlation to certain things, if you combine it with the unit economics, the dimensional data, and the conversion optimization data, then we can really build a useful signal. And we can weight attribution very, very low if it is very inaccurate or we're not able to rely on it. And arguably, that's the case a lot of times, right? So if you have attribution self-reported or some other methodology of collecting whether or not people are interacting with specific marketing campaigns, then you can weight it a little bit higher, right? If you're just depending on tags on your website, then we know it's not going to be great, right? We see the 40 to 60% direct or unattributed in our tools. And so we know that attribution isn't really as useful as it should be. And so why signals? I thought this was going to be a different slide, actually. I thought we were going into the customer example, but we'll hammer this point home one more time. Why signals? Signals is using data points that correlate with success, then finding out if that correlation really means something. Taking the multiple data points, including attribution, we're seeing the conversion rate optimization, or we're seeing the conversion rate. We're seeing how that leads to actual customer performance financially, right? How much revenue, how much profit, how long they're sticking around, their churn, all that stuff. Your focus isn't on capturing every single touch that goes on, but on how you can use constructed cohorts to see what leads to outcomes. This is what signals are, like I said. It's how you can use constructed cohorts to see what leads to outcomes. Outcomes. This is the important part right here. Signals is all based on results. It's based on data. And it's based on action. So data, action, and results equal a signal. And that tells us what data points, what signals to pay attention to. And so it's much more wholesome than attribution itself. We're putting the whole picture together with a signal. And so now, that's why you should use signals. But this is real client results with signals. You must automate them. Otherwise, you get lost into the abyss. Even if you're small, you're missing out on significant chunks of revenue if you're not automating signals. The signals don't have to be detailed, but you need some level of automation. And then you can't discover things like this with attribution. And so this client, if they were just looking at attribution, they would have never identified this opportunity, because signals, part of signals are behavior data points. And so these are expansion opportunities. Let me scroll down here. These are expansion opportunities that were not captured in the system. You would have never seen it with attribution, because with attribution, you're just looking at what's happened passively, right? We're not looking at what's actively happening, the behavior data points that are feeding into signals. We're not looking at how those data points are combined with actual financial performance and conversion rates. And so when we do that with signals, we can see here that these are all expansion opportunities that didn't exist in the system before December when we rolled it out, because people were providing signals as existing customers that they were ready for expansion. Sometimes it was explicit, they asked for it. And then other times they just had all of the other data points that indicated that it should be a conversation with the account manager. And so then you see when this takes hold, they end up closing. I don't know where the legend went here, but the blue is the one. So you can see here they end up closing all these deals that were probably just sitting out there ready to be taken. And they added, this is recurring revenue per month, $75,000 per month in revenue. And for a small company, it's huge. Right? And so this would never have been discovered with attribution. Now you can still tie back attribution now. Once you have these expansion deals, you can see, okay, we landed these expansion deals and other signals created those expansion deals. And now we can tie in attribution to understand clients who typically expand even better. But it would have never surfaced this if we just use attribution. It's passive. That's the main change in thought that you have to have. It's too passive. It's useful. You can still use passive data collection for useful things, but you cannot be proactive with it and take advantage of all of the opportunities that are actually there. And so that's what we like to show here. And so we are done here. Take one action. Share in a company chat is what we ask, what I ask. We've seen this. We average about 10 to 15 shares per week. So we appreciate the people who have been sharing the videos here. And then last but not least, next video will be a surprise. Subscribe on YouTube here or via the link in the description. If you want the Signal Constructor tool, we get great feedback all the time on it. It tells you exactly what data points you need to look out for, you and your team, the criteria that needs to be met, and then the actions that need to be taken based off of that signal. It's exactly how you plan out your signal approach. I'm Dan Saavedra from MergeYourData. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.